We had had a couple of clients that want to invest some money. About 4 months into it, came in, had us escorted off the property, was going to take over the business. And I remember Charity and I were just bawling, we're going to lose everything. That was a tough lesson.
They say the quietest people hold the loudest grudges. And if that's true, then Dave Kindig has been silent for far too long. Because this is a man who almost never shows anger. For decades, he's stayed calm, professional, and focused, quietly building some of the most flawless custom cars the world has ever seen. But behind that polished smile, there were people who tested him. Kindig has finally broken his silence, not to stir up drama, but to tell the truth. The 5 names that challenged him, frustrated him, and in some cases, completely changed the way he looked at the car world. Not random rumors. These are real people, fellow builders, business rivals, and even friends who turned his passion for craftsmanship into a battle for control, credit, and authenticity. For anyone who's followed Bitchin' Rides or Kindig at Design, these revelations make one thing clear. Dave Kindig didn't rise to the top because of TV fame. He rose despite the people who tried to hold him back. In this video, we'll break down the 5 names that defined his toughest years, the friendships that fell apart, the rivalries that got personal, and the betrayals that taught him why in the car world, respect is earned, not given. Let's start with the one name that changed everything, the man who once inspired Dave, before turning into his greatest creative rival. Number 1. Chip Foose. From the moment Dave Kindig's name started appearing beside Foose's in magazines and shows, the comparison was inevitable, but what's rarely mentioned is how the rivalry pushed both builders to redefine everything they believed about custom cars. Foose had the pedigree, classic lines, the Riddler Award, a television legacy with overhauling. Kindig, meanwhile, was rising fast, garage to screen, bold with his modern interpretations. The subtle tension started when fans and networks began framing the question, who's the real king of custom? For Kindig, what looked like admiration turned into a silent test of his place. Every time Foose was celebrated for the original visionary, Kindig felt the weight of being next. And that weight left a mark. The critical moment came not with a public explosion, but a series of quiet slights. Kindig saw Foose get the benefit of doubt when design decisions were challenged, saw his own innovations dismissed as glam customs, while Foose's were hailed as art. Rumors swirled in industry circles that Foose, protective of his territory, subtly redirected clients or critics away from Kindig's designs. Meanwhile, Kindig's team felt the sting of being the young guns in Foose's shadow. At trade shows and in interviews, Kindig heard it, classic purity versus modern reinterpretation. And for a man whose reputation was built on pushing boundaries, that became personal. The rivalry wasn't about anger, it was about respect, validation, and the unspoken message. If you build cars as good as his, still you're under his spotlight. And that's exactly why Foose's name became the first on Kindig's list. Number 2. Richard Rawlings. When Fast and Loud exploded on Discovery, Richard Rawlings became the loudest voice in the custom car world. He built a brand out of chaos, whiskey, rock music, and quick flip cars. Dave Kindig was his opposite. Polished, patient, obsessed with the smallest detail. The network loved both men for different reasons, but behind the scenes it created friction. Discovery's executives wanted crossover appearances, yet the two builders had fundamentally different codes. Rawlings believed the louder you shouted, the bigger the check. Kindig believed the work should speak for itself. That difference became fuel for a quiet feud that viewers never saw. In Kindig's world, cars are built once, right? No shortcuts. In Rawlings' world, they're built fast right now. And every time a sponsor or magazine compared their shops, the tension grew. Things came to a head when shared suppliers and event promoters started using Kindig's name to sell Gas Monkey merchandise, blurring the lines between two brands built on opposite philosophies. Kindig's team pushed back, calling it exploitation. Rawlings' camp called it marketing. Kindig saw it as disrespect, a businessman hijacking the craftsmanship he'd spent decades protecting. He refused joint deals, skipped collaborative events, and made it clear he wouldn't trade integrity for exposure. Industry insiders still whisper that the two avoided each other at SEMA for years, not out of hatred, but because both men knew the clash wasn't fixable. Kindig wanted legacy, Rawlings wanted reach. And in an industry that rewards attention more than precision, that clash became personal. To Dave Kindig, Richard Rawlings wasn't an enemy because he was successful, he was an enemy because he proved how easy it is for noise to drown out skill. Number 3. Aaron Kaufman. Aaron Kaufman earned his reputation as the raw genius behind Fast and Loud, the hands-on builder who could tear down and rebuild a car before most people finished planning. His departure from Gas Monkey Garage and launch of Shifting Gears gave him the freedom he always wanted, but it also pulled him straight into comparison with Dave Kindig. Both men were builders first, television personalities second, and both had something to prove, that you could make great TV without selling out your craft. Yet their philosophies couldn't be further apart. Kaufman thrived on improvisation and mechanical intensity, rough, real, and spontaneous. Kindig, on the other hand, was the architect of precision, nothing left to chance, every curve calculated. When fans and journalists began pitting the two against each other, the respect between them turned into quiet resistance. They represented two extremes of the same art form, and neither wanted to be defined by the other's approach. The rivalry deepened when Discovery pitched crossover specials that never happened. Behind closed doors, there were whispers that Kaufman rejected joint projects because he didn't want Kindig to overshadow his new brand, while Kindig's camp avoided involvement for the same reason he didn't want his designs reduced to another builder's experiment. Industry insiders noted a subtle tension. Kaufman often criticized over-engineered builds on social media, while Kindig's perfectionist approach was exactly that. Both were chasing authenticity, but they defined it differently, one through speed and instinct, the other through precision and design. Fans called it mutual respect, but those close to the scene called it rivalry with a smile. For Kindig, Kaufman became a mirror proof that even the most talented craftsmen can become opponents when the spotlight shines on the same road. Number 4. Kevin Scheel. Kevin Scheel, known to fans as KC, has been by Dave Kindig's side since the beginning, the muscle, the humor, the heart of Kindig design. But longtime partnerships in high-pressure environments are rarely as simple as they look on TV. Years of deadlines, creative clashes, and network expectations began to blur the line between friendship and leadership. There were moments when Kevin felt overshadowed by the Kindig brand, despite being the backbone of many builds that carried the show. Meanwhile, Dave was under constant pressure from Discovery to meet production demands, often pushing his crew to exhaustion to keep the quality perfect. That strain occasionally spilled over in the shop, where minor disagreements turned into real tension. Insiders have hinted that Kevin once considered leaving over creative frustration, though neither man has ever confirmed it publicly. To the fans, they remained brothers. Behind closed doors, it wasn't always that simple. The friction peaked during the mid-seasons of Bitchin' Rides, when network producers allegedly pushed for more conflict on camera. Dave refused, determined to protect the authenticity of the shop, while Kevin reportedly clashed with production crews over forced narratives that made him look careless. Kindig defended him, but the damage lingered. Kevin started stepping back from interviews, focusing instead on the builds, and fans noticed the quieter tone between the two. They never had a public fallout, yet people close to the team describe a mutual understanding. Too much fame can fracture even the strongest loyalty. Over time, the tension eased, but that period taught both men a hard truth. Success demands sacrifice, and sometimes the cost is the friendship that built it. For Dave Kindig, Kevin Scheel wasn't an enemy in the traditional sense. He was a mirror of how easily trust can bend under pressure. Number 5. Mark Werman. Mark Werman built Graveyard Cars on a single principle: restore every Mopar exactly as it rolled out of the factory. No shortcuts, no creative liberties, no modern twists. Dave Kindig stood on the opposite side of that line. His world was custom, sleek, reinvented. For years, both shows coexisted under Discovery's car culture umbrella, but tension brewed quietly. Werman often took public jabs at the resto mod scene, calling it butchering history. Those comments weren't aimed by name, but fans quickly made the connection. Kindig Design was the biggest resto mod shop on TV. Trade show whispers and social media threads soon turned it into a feud, the purist versus the artist. For Kindig, who'd spent his life blending creativity with respect for heritage, being painted as someone who ruins classics cut deep. He never clapped back, but his silence spoke louder than any post. Behind the cameras, the divide was professional yet unmistakable. Discovery producers occasionally floated the idea of a crossover episode to bridge the two camps, but it never happened reportedly because neither man wanted to concede creative ground. Werman's team viewed Kindig's cars as entertainment. Kindig's crew saw Graveyard Cars as stuck in the past. The rivalry stayed polite, but industry insiders remember the 2019 SEMA show where both teams presented within the same hall and barely exchanged a word. To this day, neither builder mentions the other publicly, But the contrast defines two extremes of automotive philosophy. Worman preserves, Kindig transforms. And that's why his name sits on Kindig's list, not out of hatred, but because every time Worman dismissed customization as wrong, it reminded Dave that innovation will always offend tradition. Every builder has scars, but Dave Kindig's are polished in chrome. The 5 names you just heard, Foose, Rawlings, Kaufman, Sheila, and Worman, weren't just rivals or co-workers, they were lessons. Each one tested something different in him: creativity, patience, loyalty, and pride. And through all of it, Dave never broke character. He never shouted back, never played for the cameras he just built. Because at the end of the day, fame fades, networks change, but a car built with integrity will outlive every argument. That's the quiet code of Kindig design: perfection without noise. So if you've ever respected Dave for staying true in a world built on ego and shortcuts, do one thing: keep this story alive. Like this video, drop a comment about which rivalry shocked you the most, and share it with someone who loves real craftsmanship. And if you want more untold truths from the garages that built legends, subscribe, because the next story might just reveal another name you never expected.